been in a bit of a reading slump, which I am sad to say. This is sort of followed on from last month, but I've slowly started to get back into reading these past maybe week and a half. This month I have read 7 books, which is not a lot for me, but that's okay. Slow and steady. This month has also been a bit of a transition period for me. I left my job and have had this month pretty much completely off work, but I got quite sick a week into my time off, and it took me about a week and a half to 2 weeks to completely recover from that. And then by the time I had recovered, it was Christmas, and I'm filming this on the 30th, so it's basically New Year's Eve, which means it's basically the New Year. Time definitely flies, whether you're having fun or not, that's for sure. Alrighty, the first book that I read this month was actually on my Kindle. Let me get it up. I had spoken about this in my books I read this year video that is my last upload. I mentioned that there would be some books in that or some books I've read weren't included in that because I finished them in between when I recorded and the end of the year. This one is in that video. I thought this was really good. It's a feminist guide to taking back the English language by Amanda Montell. It is quite millennial in terms of the humour and the way it's written. And as a feminist book, I would say, if you're familiar with the movement, it doesn't necessarily have anything new to say. But in terms of linguistics, this is a linguistics book. I really enjoyed the commentary, and I found it to be fascinating. All of the things that are related back to misogyny when it comes to the English language. I highly recommend giving this one a read if you are interested in linguistics and feminism. If you're not interested in feminism in particular, I have no idea why you're watching my channel. Not gonna lie. But yeah, it covers things like vocal fry, which funny enough was actually something men did first, but now that women are doing it, everyone seems to have a problem with it. It also talks about things like women lowering their voices to sound more important and respected, aka mimicking the lower tone of men. It covers things like Valley Girl Speak and Uptalk, all of which it's so fascinating to sort of learn about where these things originated. And like most things, they started off as something that a man did, and then women started doing them as well, and now it's cool to hate on those things. Just like the colour pink and high heels and makeup. Very fascinating indeed. So I definitely recommend that one if you are interested in linguistics and feminism and sort of the intersectionality between all of those things. The next book that I read this month was also on my Kindle, and that is called Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. This is a Victorian Gothic Sapphic book. I gave this one 3 stars. I gave the last book 4 stars. I gave this one 3 stars. I think the author is a very talented writer, but this book was a little over the top. It felt like I was reading a period piece from the time, but the author does go a little overboard with the really verbose language. Some people may really like that, but for me, I felt like it hindered this book and made it a lot denser to get through. I also did not like any of the characters. They didn't really have any redeeming qualities. I just found them to be quite annoying. The main character in particular is very self-conscious, and to the point where she would sort of make a decision in the book, and then the next 2 pages of the book would be about how she's not worthy to live her life and yada yada yada, and I was just getting bored of that same repetitive storytelling over and over again. I think if you like Gothic novels, you might like this one. Personally, I haven't read a lot, so I can't judge the vibe. I really haven't read that many Gothic novels. The one that comes to mind that I have read is Perfume by Patrick Susskind, and that was way better than this book, in my opinion. That was like a 4 to a 4.5 for me. So again, maybe give it a go. This one was released in 2025, so it is still relatively new, and it seemed to be quite underground. But I just did not click with the story or with the characters, unfortunately. The next book that I read, unfortunately, was a bit of a disappointment for me, and that is On Earth, We're Briefly Ocean Vuong. Now, I wasn't going to read this book, but I have Ocean Vuong's new novel, The Empress of Gladness, sitting on my shelf, which I desperately want to get to, so I thought I would start with this book because I had heard really good things about it. But unfortunately for me, it did not live up to the hype. So this is quite an interesting layout in terms of a novel, or I should say structure. It is a memoir, but it's written in the form of a letter to Ocean's mum, and it's set out in 3 parts. I thought that sort of structure in itself and the idea behind it was really interesting. I have never read like a memoir that's set out like this, so I was definitely intrigued. But for me, the strongest part was the first part, and then it sort of went a little downhill. I enjoyed the first part because it touches on themes about being an immigrant and growing up where you don't really belong. You've got Ocean in particular only grew up with his mum. His father was not in the picture, and he grew up in America, but his mum is Vietnamese and he grew up with her. So he's sort of a first generation immigrant living in a country and a culture that is completely different to his own, and he's navigating that. The second part sort of follow him when he gets a little bit older, and I found the writing to get a little bit more pretentious, but equally more boring at the same time. There were 2 quotes that I liked, but that was about it. I thought the writing on identity was definitely the strongest part of this book. I will probably, I gave this 2 stars, by the way. 2.5, I think. I will probably honestly donate this one to my street library because I didn't enjoy it that much. Ocean is a poet for the most part, and a lot of this was very, very beautifully written. You can definitely tell that he's a poet, but for me it was too poetic to the point where I would read a sentence and have to like sit and think about what he meant, and that ruins a book for me if I have to every sentence like sit and ponder about it, especially when or if I am not aware that that book is going to require that level of brain power to read, honestly. So yeah, it was okay. If I could recommend a book that talks about identity better, I would say that Crying in Xmas by Michelle Zauner is talks about the same themes as this book, but in a much better way, in my opinion. The next book I read this month is again on my Kindle, and I actually enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Now my Kindle likes to randomly go onto the internet for some reason. I don't know why. I'm just getting up the cover for you. It is called Mother Tongue by, is it Niyama Brown? Or Naima Brown, I'm not sure. This book is very chaotic. It definitely won't be for everyone, because I think a lot of the sort of Goodreads feedback I saw from this book that it was trying to do too much, but I enjoyed it. If I could compare it to anything, it would be the TV show Shameless, the US version, obviously, in terms that everything bad that could happen does happen, and there are so many twists and turns. Some of them are predictable and some of them are not, but this is definitely a light-hearted book. It does touch on some interesting themes that I do think are important to talk about. The premise of the book is there's a mother, and she has an accident, and she forgets how to speak English, and it's about sort of her navigating that. I don't want to spoil it because so much happens. It's one of those books that I just recommend you read. It's, like I said, it's not that serious, so definitely take it light-heartedly. I would, just compare it to a TV show drama or even like a telenovela. It's very Jane the Virgin, if you've seen that show. That being said, when I read this, I really needed a light book, and this was definitely a light book, which I appreciated. I don't think it was the best in terms of writing, but I had fun while reading it, and it scratched that drama itch. And sometimes you just need to read a light-hearted book. You can't read serious books all the time. The next book I read, I gave this one 4 stars, and that is The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. I enjoyed this book a lot more than I thought I would. I've had some friends who have read it and they didn't like it, and we tend to have very similar taste in books, so I thought I wasn't going to like it either, but I surprised myself. This book is sort of sci-fi-y, definitely dystopian, and it was originally written in the 90s, and it's a Japanese translated fiction. It's about an island where things disappear and then people's memories disappear, and there are a group of people called the Memory Police who enforce the disappearance. They make sure that the last remaining things about the thing that disappeared are all gone. But things keep getting stranger and stranger on the island, and there are groups of people. Most people forget everything, but there are some people who remember, and the memory police target them as well and get rid of them, basically, because they obviously stand in the way of people forgetting. I thought this book did everything that Fahrenheit 451 was trying to do. If you've seen my video, I don't remember what month I read it in, maybe October, but I wasn't a fan. But I think this book did what that book was trying to do, just way better. It is quite slow, but I found that I enjoyed the slower pace because this is definitely a philosophical pondering book. You think about sort of the points raised quite a lot, and I really enjoyed that slower pace. I think it fit the theme quite well as well. A book that's quite similar to this, or a similar idea, similar vibe, I would say, is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I did enjoy this one more, but if you're in the market for, if you've read this and you want something similar, I would say that book is my suggestion. But I really enjoyed this book. Highly recommend. The second last book I read this month was A Chunky Boy. You would have seen this if you watched my What I Got for Christmas video. I and me and my friends and I did a Christmas dinner and we did a book swap, and this is the book that I picked up. This was on my want to read list anyway, so I was so glad that I got it. I did enjoy this. It's called The Overstory by Richard Powers. It's like 600 pages, 625 pages long. So it was a chunky girl. The way that this book is set out is quite unique. I thought clearly a lot of thought has been put into how everything works, but there are 4 parts called Roots, Trunk, Crown and Seeds, but in the Roots section there are 8 other sections about 8 different characters. I don't know if you can see that, if my camera is going to focus on it, but these 8 different characters are all connected via trees in some way. When you're reading their little sections, they're all unrelated, but I thought it was really clever how Richard wrote about those 8 characters in the part called Roots, because he's setting up that these characters are the roots of the story. And then in Trunk is a 400-page chapter, which is where I ran into issues with this book, just because it was such a long, uninterrupted chapter. I did start to get fatigued and bored in the middle. There are still events that happen. It's just because the chapter is so long that it gets a bit much. But in that chapter, we sort of get all of these characters are intertwined with each other because of the trees, and it sort of goes on from there. The last two chapters, sort of the climax is in the third chapter, and then we get the ending, which I think wrapped it all up really nicely. So I gave this book 4 stars, but that was definitely not without blood, sweat and tears trying to get through that 400-page chapter. It was a lot. This book also has some amazing word sentences about trees. It's very, very flowery in terms of the tree descriptions, but I really, really enjoyed that. Definitely, again, not for everyone, but I love nature and I love descriptions of nature, so this was definitely up my alley. I'll read you some quotes. We all travel the Milky Way together, trees and men. In every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks. The clearest way into the universe is through a forest wilderness. Another thing that I really loved about this book is that the main point is activism and protecting nature, specifically forests and trees, and that really went deep into my core because that's something that's really, really important to me. This is a really good quote that I think sums up the book. Remember, people aren't the apex species they think they are. Other creatures, bigger, smaller, slower, faster, older, younger, more powerful, colder shots, make the air and eat sunlight. Without them, nothing. I just thought that is such a powerful way to sum it up. I'll read one more quote that I really liked. For there is hope for a tree, if it goes down, that it will sprout again, and that its tender branches will not cease. Though the roots grow old in the earth, and the stock dies in the ground, at the scent of water it will bud, and bring forth boughs. But man wastes away and dies, and gives up the ghost, and where is he? Really, really enjoyed. The last book that I read this month I just finished, and I was really disappointed by because I did not like it, and that is called This Is Happiness by Niall Williams. I think the cover is really, I love it, and I wanted to really like this, but oh my god, this is like possibly one of the most boring books that I have ever read. It is set in an Irish parish, and I should have guessed that there would be a lot of God talk, but it is more than what I thought. I'm talking like every second sentence, and that is just a little bit too much for me. Obviously, as an atheist, I don't understand the God craze and certainly don't agree with it. So, this book definitely challenged my ability to be tolerant. But besides that, nothing happens in this book. It is so boring, which is a shame. Like I said, I really wanted to like it. I can't even tell you really one thing that happens because nothing happens. I will definitely also be giving this one to my book library. It does have good reviews, so I don't really understand that, but each to their own. I also really love books by Irish authors and books set in Ireland. But again, this was just not my cup of tea. I think Niall Williams is definitely a really talented author. He's not a bad writer at all. It's me that has the issue with this book. It's not a bad book. I'm the problem here. Which is fine. Not every book is for every person. I did love the nature setting though. That'll always be something I love about a book, especially in climates that are different to where I live in Australia. It's temperate, I think, here in Victoria, but I am not a fan of the Australian landscape. I much prefer sort of conifers and evergreen forests like what they have in Canada and Norway, spruce forests, stuff like that. We don't have nature like that here. We do have a temperate rainforest, but it's gum trees and other Australian trees, which aren't my favourite. I think I also love the snow, and it does not snow where I live, which makes me so sad. So anytime I read stories about sort of the nature that I'm drawn to, I really love. So sad about this one. I gave it 1.75 stars. I wanted to give it 1 star, but I thought I was feeling generous. And that is all of the books that I read this month of December. Can't believe that the year is over. It has gone so fast, and time flies, seriously. I remember years going by so slowly as a kid, but every year goes faster now that I'm an adult, and it is scaring me. The other day I was just having a moment and I realised that I moved out of my family home 3 years ago, which is insane because it feels like it was just yesterday that was happening. I'm getting old. Not really though. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. This will be my first video of 2026, so I hope you had a fabulous New Year's Eve. Personally, me and my partner think New Year's Eve celebrations are stupid, so we take the public holiday to go car camping. For me, that is the perfect way to bring in the new year. Just reconnecting with nature and touching grass, literally. Getting to surround myself with fresh air and beautiful scenery. it's the best way to reflect on the past year and to think about all of the things that I would like to achieve in the next year. So I highly recommend that if you have the opportunity to do something like that. It's just great. Also, I do want to watch the new Stranger Things, the final finale. But I think the time difference in uploads means it comes out a day later for us Australians. I don't remember. But that's what I'm going to be doing on New Year's Eve. Let me know in the comments below what you read in December and what you're doing on New Year's Eve. Thank you guys so much for all the love and support this year. I know I've only been uploading since June, but all of the love that you show me is amazing, and I always try and respond to all of the comments, and I love this community that we've built. So if you're a casual watcher, I would love it if you would subscribe and join our community that we have here. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video.